Yes. Yes.
Good morning, or rather afternoon, everybody out there in the world of Facebook. Welcome to E Squared Empowerment with Elysia. I'm your host, Elysia Buss, and today I have the great honor of privilege of hanging out with Bernadette Pleasant, currently located in New Jersey. She is a seeker, somatic healer. She does, oh my gosh, so many things. This woman, she is a sacred grief ritual facilitator, which is so fascinating to me. And I am super duper excited to get to have all those conversations. She is the founder of the Emotional Institute. She is in Femme, which is a mind body wellness program, and she has a program that she previously did called 400 Years, which is a somatic-based anti-racism program. And she is on this mission to help people with their emotional freedom through movements and empowerment, which is just phenomenal and so needed in the world today. So Bernadette, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Elysia, it is my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love that I say I'm excited to be here to talk about grief. People expect me to show up all shrouded in wearing grief colors and just down, but that is not my approach to grief.
Yeah, which I love. I know you're wearing yellow. You've got your awesome chair in the back that's all wild and fantastic. And this is a really interesting conversation for me, especially as we talk about grief today and the process of grief, because grief has always been something that I struggled with from the standpoint of like when people transition.
Sure.
And I feel like most of us have something around that whole situation. But there's another aspect of grief that I feel like we don't necessarily allow people as much space for. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this, which is the aspect of when we potentially like lose a friend or lose like a potential relationship, like somebody we got really excited about and then things don't work out. And there's this process of grieving and like, was it me or like whatever, or anger and all those different things that come with it. So
let me have at it. Let's
dive right into it.
Get in there. Let's get in there. So glad you mentioned that, and that you just mentioned loss. Loss is the gateway of grief that we all know. You know, what we love, we will lose. Whether that's a relationship, a home, job, a person, someone dear to us.
Yeah.
A pet. Anything. Your freedom, the ability to walk outside without a mask. Anything that we had or felt that we, was ours, or something that was very, very dear to us, someone or something, and that we've lost that thing. We no longer have it. It's no longer here physically. And we know that gateway of grief because people say, I'm sorry for your loss. We know how to respond to that. And not that that brings any comfort to the person who's grieving, but it is the customary response to make when someone is grieving due to loss.
Sure.
When we think of loss, though, what happens and what I notice in many of the grief rituals or people that I work with privately who are in fact grieving, they'll say something very similar to you, what you just said, and that is, I didn't know how to do it with that. I didn't know how to be with the grief. And that's so real because for most of us, we have not seen an example of what it's like to grieve in a healthy way.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen avoidance of grief.
Totally.
We've seen, and that's just me. We've seen how to avoid it, how to distract ourselves from grieving.
Yeah.
How to eat away from it, shop away from it, watch, binge watch TV or TikTok, whatever. We know how to do the things that help to try to distract us from grief. And for the most part, that is because we don't know how to do it. Yeah. We are so uncomfortable with grief. And I am not here to say, yes, grieve. We want more grief. No one wants this emotion. But to the extent that it comes because we love, because we care, because we dared to dream. And because of the 3 ingredients that it takes to create grief, and that is loss, change, disappointment. Whenever there's some combination of loss, change, or disappointment, we are in fact grieving. But to your point about the the person or the relationship, that kind of grieving is one way. And I want to just speak briefly, if I can, about the other gateways of grief.
Absolutely, yes. We're here for
Okay.
it.
Oh, yay. Okay. Francis Weller penned in his book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, the other gateways of grief. And one is the places in us that have not known love.
Mm.
So our sexuality, our beliefs, um, um, what we desired to do in life, but what we had to do. So that part that didn't get acknowledged in that,
Yeah.
there's ancestral grief. This is the grief that is inherited. It's in the tissues. It's in the DNA.
Yeah,
It is.
epigenetics.
Yes, absolutely. The epigenetics of it and how it just passes from mother to child. And so you can't put your finger on that thing. And for many, they'll say, I don't know why I feel this way. I haven't lost, or my life is good. Why do I feel this way? So now they're looking for something that they really can't put their finger on. Um, there is what they expected and did not receive. To be
I have lots and lots of experience with that particular one.
yeah, you know to be
Who
yeah,
doesn't have experience with that particular
exactly what I expected to and didn't receive. I expected to be given an opportunity. I expected to be celebrated. I expected love in return. I expected community and tribe. You know, I just
or
these
expected communication?
it totally there. It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
I expected not to be should be fearful. You know, they're things you just generally expect and didn't receive. And then there's a gateway is sorrow for the world, and that is
Can be very
really
overwhelming.
big things. Yeah, the
But
overwhelming stuff.
yeah.
Like, how do I impact this thing? Or how did I help create this problem of global warming, racism, a pandemic, like things that are so big that you just don't know how to get a bite out of it because it's too big,
Yeah,
and
it's like,
you don't know how to positively impact it, and it's heavy. It's heavy.
yeah.
So those are the other gateways of grief, and there's one other gateway, and though it's not penned by Francis Weller, and that is shame for grieving.
Mm.
So now I'm like, okay, I am actually grieving, but should I be?
Mhm.
Or is it okay to grieve? Or get over it already? Would you? That
Mhm.
kind of
Oh yeah.
self-talk, yeah, because others can't handle your grief, so you're trying to put it away and trying to be fine when you're not.
Yeah.
So those are the gateways. It's not always loss. It's you know that sort of undercurrent of melancholy, or that undercurrent or tug at the spirit that just brings you low in spirit. That's that those other gateways really can kick in. So.
Yeah, definitely. And like the anger that can come forward that just like bubbles up because of not getting to be able to express the grief, or like just feeling overwhelmed and not, or being like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this way, or wow, like this experience seems like it should have, it's too small to experience, like created that large of a feeling inside of me. And then
Mm.
like frustration turns to anger, and anger turns to rage, and then the shame comes back up on top of all of it, and then it just like compresses until it explodes.
Yep, exactly. And then you're dealing with the explosion and not at the root of this thing. And it comes from being fine way too many times when you're not. It comes from, you know, taking that real emotion of heartache and heartbreak and stuffing it somewhere in the pockets or in your bra, wherever you tuck it away somewhere because you don't want to deal with that emotion. The thing is, when we bury emotions, we bury them alive. So it's going to show up somewhere. It's going to show up in that snarkiness. It's going to show up in, you know, this some passive aggressive way of it showing in a conversation with a coworker or a partner.
We call that wrong targeting. Well, that's wrong
Wrong
targeting
target.
because
Yes.
you're like
Yes.
showing it at somebody else instead of like the individual or self that you're supposed to be like handling the situation. Yeah, it was really interesting. They just last week, and people might find this really strange, and it is definitely vulnerable for me to even say it and like online sort of situation because everybody's like, oh, positive. And I am positive, like probably like in a very authentic way, like 90% of the time. Since my job, I work on emotional mastery. Like that's what I do. And I really work
Yes.
hard on making that be real. But last Friday, I was so frustrated. And to be frank, I was sexually frustrated because like I've been alone for a very long time and things had
Yeah.
fallen apart, like things that were supposed to get to manifest and happen didn't. And it was like a layering of things like not working out. And that frustration turned to anger, turned to
Yes.
rage. And on Friday, and it just like boiled up inside of me. And I was in my truck and I just didn't want to stuff it anymore. And I literally like yelled in my
Good.
truck, like just like what the F,
Yes.
like 5 times and just like and just like
Yes.
so like the rage is like I can feel the heat in my body still, just like it was so interesting because I've had all these things and I talked to one of my best friends about some of the different stuff that was going on in my life and she's like, you're angry about a lot of stuff right now. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I am. And like talking to you and listening to it, and I'm just like, yeah, I think that part of that anger is really grief. It's really
Oh,
like
yes.
so many things that I'm grieving about and just like building. And there's only like when you get busy and you're not able to do as much, you don't not able, that's the incorrect term. When you're not giving, you know, and you're not having the boundaries with yourself to create the time and the space and the activity necessary to functionally process the experience, when you don't give yourself that, it builds and it can become problematic and then you get to that spot. And I remember when I was younger, I was such a blow top because that's what would happen all the time because I didn't feel seen or heard or understood or like safe to just get to be all of the things and express the emotions that I had. And so I was like, wow, like I haven't had a blow top moment like that in a few years when I was literally just like screaming in rage and wanting to break shit. Like I
Yeah.
was so mad. I was like, I need to go play pool, but I couldn't play pool because like that would require going somewhere. And it was like too late to get to go hit the punching bag. And I'm like living in an apartment. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
You I'm so loving hearing these things because your body was craving something because
I
you're
wanted
mentioning
impact.
it wanted the
Wanted
impact of something.
impact.
To punch the bag, to yell, and those are the things that happen in the Femme experience that I do. We literally look at different emotions and give voice to them and and express them. I call it an emotional gym. Literally, we get to work them out,
That's
move
awesome.
through them, and for many who don't get in their car and yell what the fuck 5 times, they're packing that in and saying, I'm fine. They're walking time bomb if they don't do it. It impacts the way their food digests.
Oh
It
yeah.
impacts the way you make decisions. It impacts the way you sleep. So you really need to have these outlets in a healthy way that doesn't hurt you or someone else, but it has to come out. It has to come out. And whether that's beating a pillow, screaming into one, doing what
Going for a
your
run.
body needs. Say it again.
Going for a run.
Going for a run, putting it in your muscles. I love to just go into a plank or literally just the muscles need to get that out. And so to carve out the time, the necessary time wherever you do to be able to express this. You mentioned anger. Anger covers grief so often because when we don't know what to do with that feeling, we can just erupt. And rage is just old anger. So it has built. And so it can live in the body and impact our health and so much more as when we're fine. So I friends and colleagues always know that don't tell me you're please when I ask how you're doing, don't say fine
We
because
have a
that's loaded. We don't do fine. Tell me something else, but fine is not it.
we have this term for this. It's fine really means fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Pretty much.
And so
Yes.
it's just like, and it's interesting too, because I feel like as women, oftentimes we're not supposed to get angry. We're not supposed to exhibit rage. And it's just like, and if you exhibit those things, you're by default automatically crazy
Oh
and
yeah,
irrational,
totally.
instead of just being like, no, like, did you know that like when you see an injustice, like anger and rage is actually the appropriate response?
Yes.
It's what we do channeling the emotion that can potentially be dysfunctional, not that the
Yes.
emotion arises in us. Like we assign value to our emotions, like they're just an experience.
They're just an experience. I like to treat emotions like weather. That just like we would prepare for snow, we throw on some boots, we, put on
Oh, I
some,
love that.
yeah, sunscreen, grab an umbrella, whatever the forecast is, just be with it and
Yes.
accept it as it comes. When we know we're going outside and we just look out there, okay, it's rainy, what do I need? There is that, and we may not love the rain, so yes, there might be a, oh god, it's raining or it's snowing, I'm supposed to get 8 to 10 inches here later this week. I
Woo.
know that means boots and salt, just prepare.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we are feeling this weather internally, rather than shame it, shove it down somewhere, put it off somewhere. How about just having some grace and saying, "Oh, this is what I'm feeling. Actually, I'm not fine. My heart is hurting right now." When you acknowledge that this feeling in your body feels seen, and someone else who you might just acknowledge that too gets to show their humanity. It really works out for everybody, and then you're not trying to tuck that somewhere. You get to be with it and you still show up. You don't, it doesn't mean I have to be in full joy to show up. What I need to be is real. So yeah.
Yeah, and present. And like I talk to the people like that I'm coaching when it comes to emotions, especially ones that are uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I'm just like, think of it as a stranger, like a good stranger, not a bad stranger,
Yeah.
that comes to your door and they're tired and they're hungry and it's cold outside. And that stranger is like your emotions. And so those emotions, they come into the house, and what, instead of slamming the door in their face, what if you invite them in to a warm fire and some hot tea and
Yes.
some stew, and you listen to the stories that they tell you about what their experience is and what has brought them to your door. And then you give them that shelter and sleep. And then in the morning, you wish them well and send them on their way. And you get to sit there with your cup of coffee and like reflect on everything that they've told you.
I love that. I think that is such great advice and coaching with your clients.
Thank you.
I have a quote that I use, that there are no good, bad, light or dark emotions, only emotions that need to be fully acknowledged and expressed.
Yeah.
When we treat emotions like this, as opposed to categorize them and segregate them, like you belong over there, you here, we don't, where our bodies don't do that, so our spirit can't. So I recommend just what you said, to invite it in. It's there for a reason. It's there because you dared to live and be and love and dream. And therefore, sometimes there is loss, disappointment, and change. And the more compassionate we can be with ourselves when we are feeling grief of any kind, the more we can slow down and be with the intensity of that feeling, give voice to it, and make time for it. That's how we get through it. Folks are trying to get over it, and that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah. So I really love that you offer that to your clients. It is brilliant.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do really beautiful work that I love because, like you, I too am a dancer. And I love drumming. And when I was young, I grew up in Olympia, Washington, and Seattle, and we had this thing called the Folk Life Festival, and there was always a circle of drums. And so every year I like lived for the moments where I could just go and dance in the middle of the drum circle for a few days, just for hours on end, and just lose myself to that tribal experience and the vibration and that deep, deep just sound of the drums. And I haven't gotten to do that for years, and I absolutely miss that. Whenever I hear about people doing integration and therapy and whatnot, integrating drums, I'm just like, yes, let's talk about it.
Yes. Yeah. And many of the workshops that I do this weekend in the Femme experience, I use live African drums in that. And yes, we do that even virtually with live drums. And the reason for the drums is because first of all, it's the first sound you ever heard. It is the first sound you ever heard with that heartbeat. And as a result, what I have found is those drums are not there to, create party. They are there to relax the nervous system. It's a living skin played by a healer who really knows what they're doing, and it relaxes the nervous system and encourages a deeper level of healing simultaneously. As a parent and grandparent, I've learned to hide the broccoli. I call it that. For people who don't want the veggies, I got to get them in there somehow. And in a 90-minute experience doing deep emotional work, to be able to set it to drums so people are moving their body and sounding. That's another thing. As my work is more about movement rather than dance. I don't teach dance. What I teach is freedom of body.
Yeah.
And how to be free in your body and to move this machine that houses all these emotions.
Yeah.
And feelings, and to express those things, to move your joy, and to take up space with it.
Yeah.
To feel the grief and acknowledge it, to give voice to what's causing you to feel whatever injustice that causes the anger to live, to have desire, and to like relish in that and feel the yum of that in your body. Because when you are feeling these emotions, it helps you to move out what doesn't belong so that there's space to welcome in what you want, more of how you want to feel. And so, yeah, the drums help me do the work that I am doing because it is delivering medicine, whether someone moves their bodies or just listens to that music because it's playing to the emotion.
Yeah.
So it's great technology, and I'm excited and pleased and so grateful for the percussionists that play with me and come to those classes.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Someday I'll get to have a drum again. I had someone, she went to Africa, and I was teaching in Oregon, and I was just like, can you please bring me back a drum from Africa? And she brought me a drum back. And then sadly, when I moved, the drum ended, like there was this big rush, and the drum ended up staying in the classroom. And I was like,
oh,
I waited so long to have
yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I have a drum, but I can tell you one thing. I don't play drums. I am grateful for those who do, and I have some, but I'm going to use some other instruments because that there is not my gift.
It's good to acknowledge like what yours is and what it isn't, and
Right?
just like embrace all the beautiful things. And that's why I love bringing so many different people on the show and getting to hear so many varied perspectives of life and their journeys and the wisdom that they get to bring. And it's a beautiful thing to just get to expand your range.
Yes, it really is.
Different eyes. So when you're bringing people through the process of grief, thank you, Andrew. When you're bringing people through the process of grief, like what can you give us some examples I know it's so different for everybody. So like, you just want to pick one that you feel like would be most beneficial for the audience.
When I'm bringing them through the process of grief, what's that like?
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely varies from people grieve in very, very different ways. Some people are very quiet and inward. Others really need to move their bodies. These days, we're doing the grief rituals virtually, so people are invited to be on screen or off.
nice.
It's their choice. I mean, you do it the way you can and the
Yeah,
way you need to. Um, what's important is to invite all of who they are into the space, literally to feel welcome. So it's important for me to create a womb like container so that they feel warm, safe, and in whatever level of darkness. When I say that, eyes closed, off screen, whatever, under a blanket, whatever feels good, do more of what your body is asking you for. Um, I was working with a client the other day who was referring to her a family member had passed, and she was saying, someone wasn't crying, so they were concerned. And there's this expected way that grief must look, and the tears are not an indication of grief. Tears are, many people cry, but not all. And that doesn't mean someone isn't grieving. So, really meeting someone where they are with so much care. I do this exercise in my uh, um, workshops often where I ask them to cradle the baby. Literally imagine and put your arms in motion what it would be like to cradle a resting newborn baby,
mm,
and how when we slow down and we're so present in matching the breath of that newborn baby, realizing the tenderness and sacredness of this rest that this baby needs. And if someone were approaching loudly, how we would just, not now, shh, baby's resting here. We honor this time, that we do the same for our hearts when they are bruised or cracked or broken. Um, that we slow down and give ourselves what we need, just like we would give that baby.
mm,
And to ask yourself, when you're feeling the weight of grief, are you tending to it like you would that newborn baby that's resting? Not rushing it along, not judging it, not putting it in the fine category, but really just being with it. And part of that being with means acknowledging that it exists. That's how it even begins. So um, what it looks different for every person, and there really is no measure. Someone can come with a really horrific story, one that is, and someone else might come with something that impacts them the way a horrific story would, and it might seem lighter or like a lesser thing, but there is no such thing. To really remove measure and
right.
to just see the person where they are.
Absolutely. And for some of those people that disassociate from, so like, what is the way that you help those people that are kind of in denial? Thank you, Frankie says absolutely awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, so the people who disassociate, because so often as humans, just to get through our days, we disassociate from our body, which is why when you go and get a massage, you're just like, I had no idea that hurt me or was tight.
yes.
Same thing as with
You
your
know,
rituals.
I think this is such a timely and good question. I was just working with a hospital doing a grief ritual for their nurses.
Mm,
They
much
are,
compassion fatigue.
oh my gosh, they are pushing and working and working so hard. They're such beautiful hearts. And I really appreciate an organization that says what we're starting to see from the mask up is despondence. and we want to offer the help that they need. Um, and what happens in some arenas, and this, I'm just speaking to that particular group, but this happens everywhere, can be a I'm okay. I can get through it. I and what I notice is the distractions get piled on. I can work harder. I can work like a machine. I can work until I drop and then wake up again and go back to work. I am going to work this thing out, literally. And
Yeah,
that
I resonate deeply with this conversation.
yes, because it is channeled. All of that emotion gets to be channeled into that. And it creates addictions. It creates addictions to work, addictions to it's over um, it could be exercise, anything that you start to do so much more of because you are wanting to not acknowledge what is there. So what I notice helps, can't rush anyone's process. You just can't. My work is to midwife and to be there and to help craft, but not insert too much of myself in there. If we were delivering the baby, if you will, anybody's grief baby, anybody, this doesn't matter. I'm not speaking specifically to gender. I'm just talking about the grief that needs to move through anyone. What I can't do is reach up in there, grab that baby, and pull it on out. That does not work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
That sounds so painful.
That is painful, and it would like shut this down. That would be irresponsible. So it's about time and compassion and not treating everyone as if it's a one size fits all how we deal with the grief. It will expose itself if it's going to in proper time. And I think as a coach, the willingness to be there and without expectations of what the end result looks like, but to just be there patiently with what is with that particular person.
Yeah.
I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, I was just like thinking about all of the pieces. There's so much there, and grieving is such an individualized process, as is coming back into your body after disassociating from it.
Yeah.
And because it can be jarring, it can be out gradient if done too abruptly, which can then flip somebody into more of a shutdown space versus being able to kind of like sift back into themselves.
Yeah. The work of when someone disassociates from their body, a lot of times people will say, I feel numb,
Yeah.
or I don't know.
I'm a
Because
walking head.
exactly. Yeah, it's all up here. And that's a coping. It's our body's way of sometimes coping. It's not sustainable, but it certainly will get you through a period of time. What I would encourage people to do is to slow down, to come back to breath, to put their hands on body, to literally become present in the moment. Notice where you're sitting, follow the breath in and out. To notice where in your body do you feel the grief.
Yeah.
Even acknowledging, I feel it in my high heart here. I'm going to just put my hand there, rocking, offering a hum. It's soothing in the nervous system. You're simply acknowledging that you feel something and allowing your warm hand to go there and to just be with that.
Yeah.
Not change it, but to notice this body. We experience things in the body. It's there. Grief causes us to want to cower and shut down and close up and close off and fold inward.
Yeah.
And that's protective. It is anytime there is something that hurts, we curl in to protect that. The thing is, healing comes by being witnessed.
Yeah. I'm just
And
like, that's for fucking sure.
that's what I can tell you.
I'm like,
And,
use my language, no, but I was like,
okay, hell yeah, it's true.
yeah.
Healing comes by being witnessed, so it's counterintuitive. So here I am in my curled up ball, and basically I need to do that, and it takes courage to do. It takes courage to do that, and it takes and when I say courage, like there's this thought that courage is this strength and all of that. Courage is actually not. Courage can show up like that, but that doesn't mean you're not fearful or that there isn't worry or concern. You just showed up anyway. But courage is sort of opening up and allowing someone to see the soft underbelly that lives there, the tender part that we want to cover. And it is I am epically grateful to be able to witness that. And that's why I refer to it as birthing, because it's an unfolding and an opening up that allows light to come in, it allows air to come in, it allows someone to hold your hand or be with you in this process. It requires some trust. Um, so yeah, the body definitely clams up, tightens up, wants to protect. And some go through life like that. And what I would encourage is, find someone to work with. We're both facilitators of working with people of grief. Trust that someone can help you through the other side, because what I know for sure is that on the other side of this grief, which you must go through,
Yep.
on the other side, there's more life, more possibility, more love, more opportunity, all the things. But you have to get through this.
Yeah. And not try and shortcut it.
No, there are no shortcuts. There's no Cliff Note version. You really just kind of got to get up in there, roll up your sleeves, and take your time. I'm careful not to use language that sounds like, I have to tackle this problem, or I want to use gentle words,
Yeah.
because it requires that, and your feelings require that.
Yeah, it makes me think about when I take an Epsom salt bath after I've been doing a lot of body work on people, because I've been doing medical massage for 20 years. And
Mm.
people come in with a lot of pain sometimes, as well as like the general angst they have of life, which carries its own energetic signature, of course. And so then I get into an Epsom salt bath and I just lay there and I give myself that space to release. And I can literally feel the electricity leaving my hands on days when I have had like high intensity body work that I've done facilitating the healing process for people. And it's interesting. And so it's just like a perfect example of sometimes you just have to be and allow the release to happen. And it's not about going fast. And it just takes as much time as it takes for whatever needs to be discharged to be discharged.
Indeed, indeed. And it's so, I'm glad you mentioned the salt bath. Like, I find getting in nature
Yeah. Oh my
really,
gosh. The forest bathing. Yeah. Like when I
oh,
go for hikes, every time I go for a hike or I go for a bike ride in nature, I'm just like, why am I not here every single day? Like I'm just
every
like
day,
looking around, like I'm so
every day.
myself. I'm just like, how is this not a priority? Because it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, just being so present and just like letting go of the things and just like absorbing the beauty of nature and the sunlight and the scents of the forest. And it's just like, because I go to places typically where there aren't other people around, which I
Yeah.
love because I'm just like, I don't want to hear people. I love people, but I also don't want to be around them at all sometimes.
Yeah.
I want to hear
No,
traffic, airplanes, people, none of it.
yes, yeah, yeah. It is getting. I think getting away, and wherever that is. For me,
Yeah.
it's by some body of water I love. I need to hear the sound of the ocean
Oh,
move
yeah.
through me. Can't always do that, but when I can, it's so good. I'm doing some of my private work with people one on one in Kauai
Oh,
because of the richness of that land, and the depth of what's possible there is
yes.
exponential. So Yeah, and that doesn't work for everybody, but so there are got to be other ways of just getting outdoors and doing what is local to you and what is possible for you. But all of it has to be intentional and deliberate.
For
It
sure.
doesn't happen by chance, you know? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of life, you know, you get out of it what you put in or what you
yeah,
let in
yeah,
is the other part. What you allow yourself to be affected by, because like empowering your mind to be able to decide whether or not you're going to be at effect of something or not. And like when you are at effect of something, what's your rebound rate of like, okay, like I got triggered. What am I going to do with that energy that in those thoughts that just came into my body?
yes, yes. And I love that you use a trigger because when I get triggered, okay, what's here that needs to be um, what's there's something that has come up that needs to be healed, addressed,
Absolutely.
looked at. How am I going to look at that? Am I going to be reacting, or am I going to get curious about where what okay. And I had a situation come up not so long ago, and it's interesting how I was triggered by something, and I got still, and I'm like, okay, my reaction is about a 10. That thing was about a 4. What is this reminiscent of? Where did I feel? Oh, and then I started to, it became very clear. Okay, okay, this is not that. It just feels like this old wound,
Mhm.
and let me tend to this younger part of me that needs some acknowledgement right now.
Yeah.
Let me be with this so that because what happens is when that thing happened, I was about 11.
Mm.
I am fifth going on 57. Okay. So I can't let the 11-year-old run my show today. Okay. Because that's what happens if I don't sit with it. That 11-year-old shows up and it's not cute at 57. It's not cute.
No, I really love and appreciate that. I tell people oftentimes, I say, fall in love with your triggers because they
Mm,
show you where you need to heal.
yes.
And you don't have to condone the behaviors of the person that initiated the trigger response within you, but you can forgive them in a compassionate way because
Yes.
forgiveness allows you peace. It's not about condoning people's actions. And they have given you a gift. They have given you a gift that if you are willing to take a look at the stuff that just came up, that they are giving you the gift to step forward into another layer of your authentic self to present to the world and be more in present time.
Indeed. And there's it's such a great perspective to have about um it's a great perspective to have about the trigger. It is in fact a gift because now because I am in the business of tending to myself and my growth
Yeah.
and change. Literally, I want to change behaviors.
Yeah.
So if I'm aware that something triggered me, thank you for bringing this up. I get to look at this thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it, like you said, I'm not rewarding bad behavior, but I am grateful to know that it is this circumstance that brought this thing to a head. And now I have some place that I'm grateful for the tools I have. I'm grateful for community I have. I'm grateful to be able to see that it is not the thing necessarily. It is working backwards to see where that stemmed from and how
Yeah.
to move through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that within that perspective, it allows people to not be a victim of their triggers, but rather be empowered by them, which I
Yes.
think is so incredibly important because I see so many people being like, you triggered me and being
Oh,
angry about that. And I think so much of that comes from just people not necessarily having the bandwidth or the awareness or the tools to be able to create that change within them and being able to communicate and have boundaries and say, you know, I find myself becoming irrational right now. I'm triggered. Now is probably not the best time for us to continue talking about this subject, or can we change the subject? Or, hey, like, I just can't hang out with you right now because I feel like I'm going to be reactionary towards you. And I don't think that that's fair either to me or to you. And taking that personal responsibility for how you're operating in the world. Nobody likes to eat crow and have to go back later and tell them that they did a shit job like communicating or being
Absolutely.
I don't want to take the time to have to clean up that mess afterwards. That's no fun at all. I'm busy. I don't have time.
I do want to call you out on this beautiful thing, but that's a grown-ass approach to trigger. And usually most people don't have enough awareness to say that. The fact that they're saying you triggered me, actually, no, I didn't. You were triggered. You have to take the responsibility for, okay, what just happened? I am feeling triggered, not you triggered. You can't trigger me.
Exactly.
So you got to take responsibility
That's what I'm
for,
saying.
I am triggered, yes.
Yeah.
And now what do I get to do? Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that like people in general, that's what I keep hearing from people in general, that they're saying, you're triggering me. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
and it's an evolutionary process. And like, you're coming up on 57, I'm coming up on 42. Like, there has been lots of mistakes I have made and lots of times that I was reactionary. And like, that's why I feel like I can have this conversation with people with compassion and empathy and be like, I am not judging you right now for being reactive and dealing with this stuff. Like, I do this all the time and I still have my what the fuck moments where I'm reactive and don't do the best job, but that's humility. That's when you have grace and you're just like taking a step back and be like, hey, I'm really sorry. I mismanaged that situation, and trying to foster a safe space for both people to communicate and being able to have the opportunity to grow. And then having boundaries when you find that you're with people that you thought you could have transparent conversations and that they had a growth mindset. And then you discover that they're not in that space. And that's where grief comes in, because you're like, I thought I was safe. I thought we were in a plane of equal vulnerability and conversation. But now I'm discovering that that's too much for you. And that makes me sad. And I'm grieving because I thought that we were good. And now I'm realizing that I might be floodlighting you, in the words of Brene Brown, or like that I tried to hotwire a connection through being overly vulnerable and like skipping some steps. And, there's just so much stuff that's there.
Yes. It is.
So I really, really appreciate your candor and sharing so much wisdom here. Like, it's been such a delight getting to talk to you today.
Thank you, Elysia.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, it's like we're coming close to our time. Is there anything else that you would really love to share with people in regards to grief and support and all that?
I would just love to share that, that quote of not judging the emotions, that there are no good, bad, light, or dark emotions. They're just like weather. Just treat them like weather. They come, they go. Some we want to hold on to, some we don't want to experience much. And the ones you don't want to experience much, just like toddlers, you'll experience them less if you have them. Just have them. Like, we're taught to have shame around them and to not have them and to operate in this really tight way, and that creates all this frustration and constriction, because we're made to be bigger than that. And so to simply acknowledge them, get the help you need, whatever that is. If that's reading a book, looking up articles, following one of us, and saying, hey, what else you got there. But just be about tending to yourself so that you can grow, because you're worth it. You're worth it. And anything you come to with less of the emotional baggage that is holding you down, you get to just live a more vibrant and deliberate and on purpose life. And that's what's needed right now.
Oh my gosh, so needed. And that reminds me of one other question that I had, which is, what advice would you give people who are with people who are grieving? How did they come to a space of compassion and support for the people who are grieving?
Yeah, whenever I enter a space, or just now as you say that, it's to, to really just notice what could be helpful, to notice them and where they are. First of all, it requires slowing down. It requires slowing down. Um, think of them as that cradled baby, and how might you approach the baby. Um, they are at any age. It just really needs to be handled with care. Um, ask them, how can I support you, as opposed to deciding what they need and coming in with that.
Mm.
I'd like to support you. Please let me know how I can do that. Or know that I'm available to support you in any way. Know that support can look like giving them some space. Support can look like running an errand, making a bed, checking in on, or just saying, hey, I just wanted you to know I care.
Yeah.
Support can look so many ways, and to just, I think, presenting yourself as available and caring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creating that space of safety for them to feel like they can actually articulate what their needs are
Indeed.
without being
Yeah.
judged.
I always go to this womb like space, and what I love about that is, yeah, it's safe, but it's also a space where something grows.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's not smother them and come all in and close, but give space for them to grow. Because when someone's grieving, remember that inclination is to cower in, and when I say cower, I mean curl inward.
Yeah.
And in order to be seen, they sometimes feel like they're too much for someone. So give them space to be there. You get the support you need elsewhere. Maybe it's your salt bath or your walk in nature, so that you can be present for them.
Yeah.
Give from the overflow, so that you can be with the intensity of what they're experiencing. And also know there's a huge amount of patience that is needed, because they move at their own pace, not at the pace that is convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. Within that vein of expansion, who in the world inspires you today, Bernadette?
Oh, wow. Gosh. I'm inspired. I'm inspired today by my partner, Andrea Vini. She is, there's this thing about being engaged and enrolled in your life, in your own personal healing journey, and staying, staying at the wheel of that, um, with love and compassion, and staying at the wheel. And I mentioned that, keeping your foot on the gas, whether that, or coasting, just moving ahead with. I see her journey as moving ahead with love and compassion, as opposed to harshness and shaming.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's a really amazing thing when you get to have someone that can hold space with you like that.
Yeah, yeah, she's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. Well, Bernadette, where can people find you to be involved with the incredible work that you're doing across the board?
Oh, Elysia, they can find me at theemotionalinstitute.com. Everything is there on social media, The Emotional Institute. I'm Bernadette Pleasant. They can find me, find me. There are offerings that are there regarding grief or just emotional release work. Maybe you want to come to Kauai. Whatever it is,
I mean,
it
I
is.
do.
Yeah, I know that's right. And one of the other things that I'm excited about, that's going to be starting, and this is for women only, but it is the Women Speak Circle, about public speaking and getting your word out, your message out, learning the art of public speaking in a beautiful feminine way that really ushers in the voice from a place of saying what's true, what is most true to you.
That's beautiful. And I am so grateful for all the different things that you're offering in the world. They are so needed. It's just phenomenal human being. And I am so grateful that I was on Isabella Braveheart's challenge, or 10-day challenge for Express. Anybody who isn't familiar with her work, you should absolutely go check her out, Isabella Braveheart. And I saw Bernadette on one of the Expresses she did there, and I was like, that woman looks amazing, and I have got to have her on my show. And so
It's been an honor to be here. And yeah, Isabella is awesome.
she's so cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to put #replay on Facebook if you're interested in being on the show or know somebody that should be, or if you're interested in having me on your show or doing empowerment coaching with or without horses with me. Please do check me out at www.globalequineaffiliates.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Elysia Buss, and of course on Facebook. So until next time, we will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.